Hello everyone, Kurt from Chicago SkyCam. Tonight we're going to take the FAA's Part 107 Recurrent test for drone pilots. This is basically your license renewal. So 24 months after you take that initial test, you have to take the Recurrent, but different than when you went into the facility and you had to pay. This one is online and it's free. So let's take it together. All right, after you've completed your training, you're going to go right to the test. All right. Question number 1, after receiving a Part 107 remote pilot certificate with a SUAS rating, how often must you satisfy your recurrent training requirements? That's easy, 24 months. According to 14 CFR Part 107, a SUAS is an unmanned aircraft system weighing, it's always less than 55 pounds. Unmanned aircraft means an aircraft operated, it's number 2, without the possibility of direct human intervention from within or on the aircraft. Which of the following types of operations are excluded from the requirements in Part 107? And that is recreational. Which of the following operations require adherence to 14 CFR? Operations conducted flight. Operation compensation. So anything involving compensation. Which of the following statements is true about small unmanned aircraft registration with an FAA before operational in national airspace? So which is true? All small unmanned aircraft operating under Part 107 must be registered. When using a small unmanned aircraft in a non-recreational outcome, who is responsible for informing the participants? It's always the remote pilot in command. A person without a Part 107 remote pilot certificate may operate in a SUAS for non-recreational operations under the direct supervision of the remote pilot in command. That's what I'm going with. A person whose sole task is watching the SUAS, it's the visual observer. The effective use of all available resources, this is always crew resource management. When you got the answer, the question is there. When adapting crew resource management concepts to the operation of a small unmanned aircraft, integrated into all phases of the operation. You have been hired as a remote pilot in command by a local TV news station. Station manager is instructing you to hurry up and get it done. He's being impulsive. He is being impulsive. Under what conditions should the remote pilot in command of a small unmanned aircraft develop his or her own scheduled maintenance protocol? When the manufacturer does not provide the maintenance schedule. Scheduled maintenance should be performed in accordance with the manufacturer's recommendations. As part of an overall safety risk assessment for flight, when should the remote pilot in command check and consider weather conditions? Always, prior to and throughout the duration of the flight. When operating around buildings, the remote pilot in command should be aware of the creation of wind gusts that change rapidly in direction and speed, causing turbulence. Part 89 remote identification requirements apply to all unmanned aircraft operated under Part 107. Do not apply to unmanned aircraft. Only apply to unmanned aircraft that weigh less than 55 pounds. It's number 1. Small unmanned aircraft without remote ID that is equipped with after production remote ID broadcast modules. This one may operate FAA, right? I think it's visual line of sight. I don't know about this one. Person may not use a remote ID broadcast module that, I know it's fails to self-test. I just read that in the training. According to 14 CFR Part 107, the responsibility to inspect the small unmanned aircraft system to ensure its safe operating condition rests with the remote pilot in command. It's mostly always remote pilot in command. Before each flight, the remote pilot in command must ensure that. And this has to do with carrying objects, even though it doesn't mention it. It's kind of an annoying question. But because that part's kind of new to the training as well, that was something I hadn't read before. And we're going to go with that. According to 14 CFR Part 107, who is responsible for ensuring that all control links between the ground? It's the remote pilot in command. According to 14 CFR Part 107, what is required to operate a small unmanned civil twilight? And it's the use of anti-collision lights. When conducting operations during civil twilight or at night, it's the anti-collision lights. Where are they visible from? It's 3 statute miles. When does a remote pilot command operating at night have the direction to reduce the intensity of the anti-collision lighting? Only in the interest of operational safety. To keep the small unmanned aircraft in the intended area, you should reduce operational ranges. During night operations, compensate for the night blind spot by, and they said to look 5 to 10 degrees off center. If the remote PIC cannot determine the location of the SUAS in relation to the other aircraft during the night operations, when should he or she land it immediately? As landing an SUAS at night is particularly challenging, select a landing area. This is with sufficient lighting to allow a safe landing. According to Part 107, how may a remote pilot in command operate an unmanned aircraft in controlled airspace? The remote pilot, they must have prior authorization from the ATC. Without prior ATC authorization, you can fly your SUAS below 400 feet from the ground in uncontrolled airspace. To conduct Category 1 operations over people, the small unmanned aircraft must weigh 55 pounds or less, including everything on board that is attached. For Category 2 operations over people, the small unmanned aircraft, I know it must not contain any exposed rotating parts. For Category 3 operations over people, must not cause injury equivalent to greater than the impact of, so this is the kinetic energy of the drone if it were to hit somebody. Category 4 operations are limited to unmanned aircraft. With FAA issued airworthiness certificates. For Category 1, 2, and 4 operations over people, sustained flight over open air assemblies are restricted to small unmanned aircraft that meet Part 89 remote ID requirements. In accordance with 14 CFR Part 107, you may operate a SUAS from a moving vehicle when no property is carried for compensation or hire sparsely populated areas. In accordance with 14 CFR Part 107, except within a 400-foot radius of the structure, at what maximum altitude can you operate an SUAS? It's 400 feet above ground level. The FAA may approve your application for a waiver or provision in Part 107 only when it has been determined that the proposed operation can be safely conducted in the terms of the certificate of waiver. Will be conducted outside the United States, definitely, isn't it? When requesting a waiver, the required documents should be presented to the FAA at least how many calendar days prior to the planned operation? It's 90. Damaged lithium batteries can cause an in-flight fire. Definitely doesn't cause increased endurance. That would be nice. When operating a small unmanned aircraft system, you experience a flyaway and several people suffer injuries. Which of the following injuries requires reporting to the FAA, which is any injury requiring hospitalization? How many calendar days must an SUAS accident be reported to the FAA? Within 10. To avoid a possible collision with a manned aircraft, you climb down an aircraft, so you have to report that deviation to the FAA. So we're grading it, and we are grading it. We are not grading it. Oh, here it is. Yeah, two. So this is the visual line of sight question was missed, and this is 25 pounds. So I missed 2, This is supposed to be 25 foot-pounds of kinetic energy. I should have known that. And this is visual line of sight. Hey everyone, if this has been helpful, please follow, like, or subscribe. Thank you for your time today. Hope to see you again.